Hey everyone! The first Dragon Prince book is finally out, and it's called Callum's Spellbook. While the hiatus is still going strong, at least we have things like this to give us new information while we wait. I'm going to be going over everything we learned in this spellbook and give my analysis on what we learned. This of course includes the mysterious Earthblood and Tidebound Elves, as well as the new dragon. I'm not going to show all the pages to ensure that you still have something to look forward to when you purchase a copy for yourself. Because let me just say, this book is definitely worth the price. There's a lot to talk about, so without further delay, let's dissect the book. This is a sketchbook given to Callum by Harrow soon after they first met, but has now been repurposed into a spellbook that also talks about everything that is happening to Callum on his adventure. One thing to note is that this book basically confirms that all the end credits were drawn by Callum. I didn't really want to believe that before now, as some of the drawings are things Callum has absolutely no idea about, but I guess he'll learn all about this eventually, or he draws based off of what others tell him. Also, we get actual screenshots of things that happened in the show, so I really don't know how Callum got those. Perhaps it's best not to think too deeply about all this. First, we get a recap of how the story started and the whole deal about Primal sources. We get shown the map that we see in the Dragon Prince website, but there's nothing really new on it I could discern. We get some nice information about Callum, Ezran, Bait, Rayla, and Zim. For Ezran, we get a bit more insight in how he communicates with animals. He's been able to do this for a few years, and he explains this as basically a very deep form of empathy where he can feel what an animal wants him to know. He does say that this is hard to explain, which in some ways does mirror an Arcanum. Rayla is naturally connected to the Moon Primal, yet can't really explain how she does what she does. In that way, I think her and Ezran are very similar, but it's been said that Ezran's ability is not quite the same and is just more an extreme level of empathy. I will hold out hope that there is something more going on there with Ezran, especially seeing how much the Earth Arcanum has to do with connecting to animals, but I'll get to that later. Next, Callum goes into explaining the human world. First is of course Catullus, where we learn about Harrow, Barius, Chromaster Sarai, Amaya, Grant, Opeli, Corvus, Viren, Claudia, and Soren. There's a page that shows the entire sign language alphabet, which is simply amazing. Viren's page is pretty interesting for a few reasons. So in his likes section, we can see King Harrow's there, which is of course a no-brainer, but right next to that is his children. Big doubt right there. I suppose this does make a bit more sense when you see some of the other things Callum has to say about Lord Viren. He and his children were like a second family to Callum when he first arrived at the castle. Not only that, but Callum actually remembers a time when Viren was a kind dad that loved his kids. Callum understands that he is a different man now, and even calls him pure evil. As Callum says, it looks like dark magic has poisoned his soul. We also get confirmation that his staff was created by elves. In the show, Zyard mentioned it was a gift from one of the Great Ones, which we assume to be an elf, and the Dragon Prince website says it was Elven made, but I appreciate the confirmation here as well. Now we just need to learn if the Great One was indeed Erebos. I would be very surprised if it was any other elf. As for his daughter Claudia, Callum says he doesn't really know who she is anymore, but has faith that despite her loyalty to her father, she'll end up doing the right thing. A cute piece of trivia we learn is that when Claudia first learned dark magic, she would do fun things with it like prank Soren and make extra fluffy pancakes. And it seems that hot brown moaning potion was invented after a long night of reading. Seems necessity really is the mother of all invention. Of course, I need to mention Soren's page because who would I be without talking about my boy? Honestly, we don't really learn anything new, but it is stated that he does not understand Claudia's obsession with magic and magical creatures. He prefers a sword fight to solve any problem. We also see Callum admit that while Soren did bully him, he could also be unexpectedly nice. I always knew there was good in Soren because of moments like those. I'm so proud of him. Then we get to the other human kingdoms, and we learn some few new things for some of them. Callum says he never met Queen Farida, and this is due to Evenir being an island kingdom that is only accessible by boat. It is apparently a very swampy place. But Callum actually had met Prince Kasef of Neolandia when he was younger, and he reminded him of Soren. Yet even to Callum it was clear that anger and hatred had changed him. Nothing new about Anya or Durin, but for Delbar we learned that Florian acted like everyone's uncle and was very strong. This makes sense because Callum says that Delbar is a kingdom up in the freezing mountains. The book then talks about Elisineva, then about the cursed caldera. Apparently Rayla thought this place was first named after Seraphina's curse, which turns out I was spelling wrong this whole time. He can be seen in the history books in the castle, and from San Diego Comic-Con we learned that he was a very unlucky man that traveled the world with a young elven professor named Delilah Geel. So I guess it seems that both elves and humans knew about him. I also want to know what kind of elf Delilah was, and I hope we get more information about both of them soon. Then there's a page about Lujane and Fifi, and then it leads to the Moon Nexus and the Moonhenge. It does not seem like there's anything super new, but as a refresher, the Moonhenge was once a place where Moonshadow Elves performed rituals. But when Xadia was divided into two, the Moon Druids destroyed it. Additionally, A nexus is a place where the magic of a primal energy is at its most pure and powerful. The moon nexus reflects the moon perfectly, so that when the moon is full, its light completely fills the lake. Legends say that ancient elves could use the power of the nexus to open a portal to a shimmering world between life and death. Soon enough, we'll learn if this legend is true in the upcoming graphic novel, Through the Moon, which will be out in September. Then Villis and Berto are discussed, and then finally we are on to the really good stuff, Xadia. We learn how the border was created by magic when the continent was divided into two, and the breach is a secret passage into Xadia discovered by humans. But as we saw in Season 2, Moonshadow Elves are able to cross the lava with the Moonstone Path. Now here's where the book gets really good. We finally get to see all the types of elves. Moonshadow and Sunfire are nothing new, as we have seen many examples of each. But oh my Garlith, look at these Star Touch elves. These two both seem female, although who really knows after Erebos. They look quite a bit different than him, and the one that is colored in has a circle of lights floating around their neck, as well as a circle behind them. That halo of sorts definitely gives off angel vibes. They also have stars in their hair, and their horns look pretty magnificent. Their clothes do remind me of the ones that we see Erebos wearing. As for the other one, they still have a crown of diamonds and braided hair. The horns on this one don't seem as complex, but still seem to curve in the way that Erebos' and this other elf's do. We then get a look at a Skywing elf that looks like a mix between Nyx and Rayla. And now, after many months of waiting, an elf we have never seen one instance of before, an Earthblood elf. And wow, he is looking neat. This seems like one of the Earthblood elves that would be connected to plants and animals rather than stones and minerals, unless he is actually grey with moss all over him. The knees especially make me think that they intended for this one to look like a rock, texture-wise. Could this be Terry? I don't know, but I am so excited to find out. Finally, we get a first look at Tidebound Elves. I am blown away by how beautiful they look. I love all the little details on this one, such as the necklaces and belt-like thing that has the little loops on it. Maybe those are useful for attaching weapons too. It also looks like on the sides of his body are gills. I wonder if they are able to stay on land for so long. I would guess they can stay up for a little while, considering they do actually have feet. Sadly, no mermaid tail here, but I'm already in love with their designs. It's just so amazing that after so long we finally know what all the types of elves look like. Make sure to stick around though, because there are some more pages and more instances of each of these elves, as well as some other really cool stuff. Now we get more specifics about the location and other elves we saw in Xadia. We don't really learn anything new about the Silver Grove or Athari, but they both get dedicated pages. For Rune, Callum mentions that he should probably hate him for killing King Harrow, but knows that that would not be the best idea. He was also like a father to Rayla, teaching her how to fight as soon as she could walk. Onto the Sunfire Elves, we first have Lux Aurea. This city is made out of gold and stones that glitter in the sunlight. The book goes more into Sol Regum later, but we learn here that the Sunfire Elves really worship him and repeat the shape of his horns in their crowns, weapon designs, and architecture. The Sunforge is where Sunfire Elves create powerful weapons, as the name suggests. It focuses the light and primal magic from the sun. Light concentrate within the orb, and the disc rotates to aim the beam onto the forge below. Onto the Sunfire Elves themselves, we of course have Janai first. As we have seen with Janai, some Sunfire Elves have a heat being mode where their skin glows with actual molten lava, and they become super strong with the ability to walk through fire. Amaya also has a note in there mentioning how another aspect of the sun is light. A rare ability that some Sunfire Elves have is light being mode that lets you heal others. Then we get a page for the Sunfire Queen, whose name is not stated here for some reason, but we know it to be Kessa. It turns out that she has protected Lux Aurea ever since the death of her grandmother, meaning that she knew her grandmother well. I wonder what happened to Kessa and Janai's mother if Kessa was next in line after Queen Aditi. Or it is possible she was just a protector of the land until her mother passed, as it says protect and not rule. Also, we learn she carries what is called the Scepter of Radiance. We do get Kazi's name, who is also known as the Elven Interpreter. Nothing huge is learned about them, sadly. Now on to other Xadian things, we get a page on Nyx. Can't say there's much new on her besides learning about her secret liking of flatulence lilies. Yeah, not weird at all. I also want to mention that the book neglected to have a page about Ibis, which I'm a bit salty about. He was a pretty important character that showed Callum how a sky mage casts a spell to turn their arms into wings after all. Moving on, the Midnight Desert is named so because of the black sands that covers it. And due to its color, the sun is absorbed and the sand becomes super hot during the day. During the night, Soulfang serpents come out. Now it's time to discuss the most mysterious elf there is, Erebos. One thing that we didn't get to see in Season 3, but that apparently did happen, is that Callum asked other elves about Erebos. However, most of them said that they had never heard of the name, or refused to talk about them if they had. Callum is curious as to how someone that was able to become an archmage could be so hated and feared by everyone. It was also confirmed here that Callum was only able to see information about Erebos for a few moments before it disappeared, like with Viren. This makes sense that the elves wouldn't want anyone to learn about him, yet they'll not speak about him to Callum. Not only do we get to see new types of elves in this book, we get to see new creatures as well. I mentioned this before in my review, but I love the crazy designs that basically all the Xadian creatures have, and these new ones are definitely no exception. First we got this bird creature that actually looks like it could have 4 legs as well as wings. I really wish Callum didn't draw on the side of the page so I could see it in all its glory. My best guess, since it's a bird, and from its color scheme, I could see it being connected to the Sky Arcanum. Then there's this lizard with horns. Maybe it's connected to the Ocean Primal, as I could see it being some sort of newt. And finally, for new creatures on this page is this kind of horse, kind of goat looking thing. I could see it being connected to either Ocean or Earth Primals. Seeing what the rest of it looked like would really help Callum. As for creatures we have already seen, we didn't learn much new except for with the Banther, which Callum makes the observation that they look pretty magical to him, and perhaps roamed both the east and west before it was split into 2. To me, it made sense that the east was always a much more magical place, and while the west did have some magical creatures, they all originally came from the east. I feel like this note really supports that idea. The next page talks about the Moonshadow and Sunfire mounts, and it seems we get another look at a Sunfire Hotcat, who honestly looks like it has a bit of peacocking in it. It's also hard to see this one because it's in the crease, of course. And finally, it's dragon time. Callum gives us a lot of good facts about them. Dragons who have extra deep connections to their primal sources are called archdragons. Other dragon types are smaller but still have a connection to a primal source. We learn about the Cloud Wyvern, which is a type of sky dragon. As we could probably guess, dragons are not plentiful because it is rare for a dragon egg to be created. The Dragon Queen only lays the egg once every few centuries. Makes me wonder if Zim has any siblings. It was probably obvious, but we learned that Pyrrha is a fire dragon. After that, we learn about Avizandum, also known as Thunder. His strength and special skills list is incredible. He could see 1,000 miles to detect any threats to the border. He could transform his body into lightning and move extremely quickly. And humans can instantly be killed with the force of thunder. All this makes it extremely clear why all the other dragons and elves accepted him as king. But speaking of kings, we get a beautiful new picture of Sol Regum. It's a shame he had to grow old and become so bitter. Next is the final big dragon we saw in Season 3, Subea. Callum questions if she was just as powerful or even more powerful than Thunder. This really makes me think about what will happen in Season 4, and if another dragon will try and challenge her for the throne, or she'll just automatically be accepted as the ruler of the dragons and elves. The next dragon we see makes me think it could be the former. Now introducing Rex Igneous. Obviously everything about him is new information, so this is super exciting. He's an earth archdragon that lives deep underneath a mountain and only emerges every 100 years or so. While Rayla has never met him, she does know that he can be appeased if he is given something he has never tried before. Odds are our heroes will meet him, and they'll have to give him something new or get eaten themselves. Maybe they'll happen to have some jelly tarts on them. I'm sure he's never had one of those. And we are finally nearing the end of the book, with a section on magic. Once again, we get the whole spiel about Xadian creatures being born with an arcanum, while humans are not, yet Callum doesn't think that's quite true. And then he goes over each type of primal magic. Honestly, these pages have so much useful information that I'm pretty much just going to read off them word for word. Moon magic is all about the spirit and the energy of the moon, including an out-of-this-world feeling. That's why a lot of moon magic has to do with illusions. Moon magic is also cyclical in its strength. It gets weaker or stronger depending on the phase of the moon. The Moon Arcanum is understanding the relationship between appearance and reality, which is why Lujane, the moon mage who guards the moon nexus on the Cursed Caldera, is so good at illusions. And it's strongest during a full moon. Callum has seen quite a few things with moon magic, and here's also some words about it. This Moonshadow elf on the left looks a bit different from the way their type dresses now. Instead, this is likely an elf from before the continent was split into 2. It also has a very weird color scheme for a Moonshadow elf, but I think it's just Callum not coloring in the drawing, as we see with Ibis on the next page. Speaking of which, this is our only look at Ibis. Criminal if you ask me. So for sky magic, here's what Callum has to say. I've heard some people refer to sky magic as the weather magic, but it's so much more than that. Sky magic draws on the vastness of the sky and the energy and movement of the winds. Lightning is kind of a big deal with sky magic, and flying, and it's strongest during a storm. Next up is sun magic, and here's what they have to say. It says that Callum is scared a bit of sun magic because it is pretty intense, just like the fiery heat of the sun. And to sum it up, sun magic draws from the heat and energy of the sun, and could be life-giving. Think of how sunlight helps plants grow, or oppressive and destructive. Think how much a sunburn hurts. A lot of sun spells involve fire, which is both awesome and scary. Sun mages project a very positive energy overall though. They believe their mission is to bring more light and hope into the world. And it's strongest when the sun is highest. At the very bottom, hidden in the corner, we get our first real look at a light being mode Sunfire elf. Now on to earth magic. So to sum it up, earth magic draws on the power and energy of the land itself. Earth magic has 2 main types. 1. Magic relating to stones, minerals, crystals, and gems, and 2. Druidic magic relating to trees, plants, nature, animals, and the like. And it's most strongest when you're deep underground. And look at these elves. They are so crazy looking. These are nothing like the one we saw earlier in the book, so I'm guessing these ones are the Earthblood elves that more had to do with plants and animals, although I could be wrong, because look at them. These ones just look like trees. These ones take the antler thing to a whole new level and are more like tree branches, complete with leaves on top. Perhaps Callum actually did high-five an Earthblood elf, and he just didn't know it. Next up is ocean magic, which he doesn't really know much about, but he wrote some things on nevertheless. To sum it up, he says, ocean magic draws on the depth and power of the oceans and tides. It also includes ice magic, like freezing spells. I've been wondering, can ocean mages breathe underwater? That would come in handy when Ezran dove into the water to retrieve the dragon egg after it fell through the ice. And it's strongest when it's high tide. It's kinda interesting that ice magic is a part of ocean magic. We saw Viren use an ice spell to freeze thunder. The ocean elf we see here is also very stunning and has a sash with rings that could probably be used to hook weapons onto. But in general, I'm really liking how Tidebound elves have a lot of rings in their designs. But if you ask me, I'm hoping that they come in a lot more colors. Pink especially. At least it is confirmed that ocean elves vary a lot in their design depending on where they live, so these ones are likely the ones that live in the ocean. And finally, we have star magic. Rayla says that this might be the most powerful magic there is, but she doesn't really know because it's so mysterious. And you know, the stars are so far away, so this makes sense. So to sum it up, star magic is sometimes called celestial magic, or cosmic magic. It draws on the vast and timeless power of the cosmos. Honestly, I've heard that star magic can be a little out there, sort of hard to understand. Star mages are extremely rare. Only one star mage may be born in generations. And Callum doesn't know when it's strongest, although if it was during a meteor shower or something like that, that'd be really awesome. On this page, we got 2 more looks at some beautiful star-touched elves. Their horns always seem so big. The bigger the horns, the more powerful the elf it seems. They all look to be super shiny in a way that we have never seen Erebos be. Perhaps this is what they look like when they are using their full powers, or when they are in space amongst the stars. Once again, we have a very angelic looking elf on the left with almost a halo. Also, the little bug pal makes an appearance. Continuing with Primal magic, we have a page on the Rune Cube. Callum lists out everything we know about it, including something we've never heard before. This is that whenever he rolls the cube on the ground, it always leaves a mark pointing in the same direction. Once in Xadia, the marks start getting longer, but it's still pointing in the same direction. As Callum speculates, it does seem that the cube is being pulled somewhere. After all, it is called the Key of Erebos, so it's plausible it's being pulled to the place where it can unlock something, most likely Erebos related. Next is a page on Primal stones, and we learned that the magic used to make them has been forgotten, and so they are extremely rare, which is why human mages may have turned to dark magic instead of just using these stones. I've always been curious as to how Viren came into possession of one. Then the book goes into rune magic, where to perform a spell you have to connect to a primal source either naturally or with a primal stone, then focus on it by tracing a rune in the air with your finger, and finally releasing it with the right draconic word. Callum recounts his experience with learning Aspro and Fulminous. Of course, this wouldn't be a proper spellbook without mentioning dark magic. We get a very cute letter from Claudia that she wrote to Callum, where she explains her rationale for using dark magic. Honestly, she's got a point. But that moral conundrum aside, we learn that there are some spells you can use permanently to enchant your fingers and hands to do neat tricks. This explains how she can light her hand up. Callum also expresses his worry that dark magic could be corrupting her, but that deep down her heart is good. Claudia redemption theory is gonna happen, I just know it. We then have some more notes from Claudia explaining some of the dark magic spells we saw back in the show. I love how it's acknowledged that these spells are literally done by speaking human words backwards, and we get the actual chant used for the ones listed. And finally, the book's final pages are dedicated to Callum recounting his journey to connecting to the Sky Arcanum. Nothing really new here, but it's always lovely to see Callum talk about everything it took to get there. As the creators promised, there were quite a few new things in here, meaning that I really urge you to help buy the book and support the show. I didn't even show all the pages, so there's some things to look forward to. Now this video's gone on long enough, and I really just scratched the surface of what is revealed to us. There can probably be much bigger analysis videos on this, but don't be surprised if info from this book ends up in later theory videos. This was a huge video, so if you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like. Also, to help support the channel, you can become a patron. I release new Dragon Prince videos on there early, plus a lot more. Thanks for watching, and have an animated day.